So this, the book, The Pursuit of Reputation by Amith Prabhu and Sujit Patil is a very unique book in the history of, Indian nonfiction. This is probably the first time that somebody has tried to sort of, tabulate what goes on in the field of public relations, which is a very little understood industry in India. And Amit and Sujit have done a fantastic job of creating almost a manual of public relations, and it will be invaluable to all the young students and fresh young professionals that I see around me. I'm a journalist, so of course I have a very fraught relationship with public relations, as we have been discussing. But it's something that we can't do without, but at the same time, PR kind of also gets our goat on many occasions for various reasons that we will come to later. But firstly, on to Amith and Sujit. I mean, what was the sort of the reasoning, what was the motivation behind writing this book?
First of all, thank you so much for coming in large numbers. Thank you so much. Really appreciate your time. A big round of applause for all of you first. I see a lot of students here, and I think, you're the next generation. Okay, Amith is saying there are a lot of chairs in the front, so you can just come in the front. We're going to have a very lively session, hopefully.
There are 7 chairs here. 7 of you can come forward.
Whoever comes first gets a copy free. Yeah, there. Copy free of the previous book. Just kidding. All right, sorry. So Amit and I have been friends since a long time, and writing this book was on the card since a long time, but we never had time to do that because of our busy professional lives. And this is one of the best things which happened during COVID, that we found some time. And so this book is a COVID baby, very satisfying because we had a lot of time and we could. But, the kudos to someone who nudged us to write this book are for the late Anant Rangaswamy. I'm sure many of you know him, a veteran in the advertising and the communications industry. He was the one who nudged us. We used to chat up late nights on Zoom, and one of those nights we happened to speak about the book. I'm sure Amith will tell you that story, but he must be watching us from up there. Thank you so much, Anant. And this book just came up. The reason for this book was there was no specific book on public relations. Even my parents didn't know what I do in office, this is a kind of a profession where if you ask a 6-year-old what is PR or what is reputation, they won't know. They know what accounting is, they know what HR is, they know what marketing and sales is, they know what finance is. But if it's public relations, how many of you really know public relations? 4 hands, 5, 6, 7. Now this is peer pressure. Everyone is raising their hands. But the fact remains that nobody knows, what PR is. And we said amongst us, there's 40 years of experience of building brands and reputations of large conglomerates. Why don't we just pen it down, put it in a book, figure out what are the nuances, what could be really useful for students, for CEOs, for practitioners, for PR professionals. And then it was a journey, it took us 1.5 years, but I think it was a journey, a time well spent, and now the book is here. It's already a bestseller, so if you've not bought it, please buy it now before the copies end. Sorry to be a little pompous, but we're really proud of this because we've got some good reviews about it. So that was the beginning. I think giving back to our profession was the need.
How many of you don't know what public relations is? Raise your hands. I'll start from there. Don't know. Several of you. So we'll come to that during the course of this session as well. So Sujit answered why we wrote the book in a large measure. But to those who don't know what PR is a very interesting management function which helps organizations. You can't hear? This mic is okay. PR is a management function which helps brands, organizations, and people reach out to their stakeholders in very interesting, meaningful, magical ways. Magical is a word I shouldn't have used, but interesting and meaningful ways. And PR uses a lot of storytelling to reach out to people by sharing things that are important features or benefits of that organization or brand that people can make use of. So that's the simple idea of PR. We'll talk more of that as we go along. Back to Shrabonti.
Yeah, so one of the people that you've quoted in the book, Komal Nath of Tute Consult, she says that PR is so much more than press releases and pitches. Now, as a journalist, I can tell you my life is 90% press releases and pitches, because how it works is that any company, they make an announcement, they have a new product, they write a press release, they send it out to various journalists, and if journalists see value in that, they write about it. So that is in one very small way is what PR also is. Right. So, but if you say that it is more than that, could you explain what more PR is all about?
Before Sujit explains why that is, so Shrabonti said we quoted Komal Nath. Just to bring this to everyone's attention, we reached out to about 80 friends in corporate communications and PR, senior and not so senior people, and asked them to write a paragraph each. Some of them wrote 2 or 3 or 4 paragraphs, some wrote an entire page. So Sujit and I together wrote about 80,000 words, 80 to 90,000 words. Those 75 friends of us together wrote 30,000 words. So we have in the book, at the end of each chapter, 4 or 5 of these additional comments from experts in the book. That's how Komalat came in. We'll talk of that later, but Sujit, answer this, please.
All right, looking at PR and public relations from the lens of a press release is a very archaic way of looking at it, actually. That's dead. Press release probably is, one element of the entire reputation in the PR process. So as Amith explained, PR is about reaching out to your stakeholders. So from a corporate angle, who are our stakeholders? They could be the financial institutions, they could be the analysts, they could be the future employees, they could be the NGOs, there could be the government, n number of stakeholders who are actually sitting beyond the organization and creating a reputation. We don't own the reputation. As organizations, we don't own the reputation. Reputation is owned by the stakeholders, how they perceive you. And PR is all about building a reputation by giving them the right information, the right time in an authentic manner. So looking at a press release which is limited to the print media, today the evolution of PR is seeing digital. There's something called digital PR, there is influencer engagement, there is stakeholder engagement in terms of events, thought leadership programs, where you can actually create an aura for your organization in an authentic manner. That's basically the nuance of PR.
Give me an example of that, like when you say, like, talk about client.
All right, so for an example, so say I'll give you example of the group which is closest to me where I work, which is the Godrej Group. So we touch about 750 million consumers in this country. You must be using Synthol or maybe Goodnight or maybe hair colors. Amith, you don't use hair colors. He doesn't have any hair left. So, the kind of products that we have, the thousands of products which go 750 million consumers use. If I want to make them believe in us, can a newspaper article work? It cannot, right? So the whole communication strategy is about reaching out to them at their consumption points. So if I ask in this room itself, how many of you read newspapers? Maybe 5-10%. How many of you go on to Google to see what references you want on products? There's a bunch of people. How many of you use social media? So the point of...
You've really made my job irrelevant. I work
No,
for
I'm
a
not saying that. I'm not
newspaper.
saying that. The fourth estate is an absolutely important thing. That's never going to die. But today, in terms of, this happened after the 90s when the liberalization happened and the products started coming in. Newspapers were really high before that because most of the news were political, most of the news were about creating narratives. But today when it's about marketing and corporate communications, it requires more touch points. Consumption patterns of people have changed. People consume data and information at multiple levels, through websites, through tweets, through Facebook, through Instagram, through social media, through digital, through influencer engagement, through events, tons of them. So what is communication today? It's about reaching out to the right TG in the right format, the place where they consume, and that whole strategy is what goes behind. So newspapers is an absolute important thing. It's one pillar of that whole communication strategy. That's what I wanted to say.
I'll take another minute to add to that. There's a framework I created a few years back to convince parents whose children want to enter PR and parents were not sure what PR is all about. I call it the house of PR. So many of you live in houses or know how a house looks like, right? Think of a 2-story house, ground floor and a first floor. I packed 12 words in 12 corners. So the foundation of a house is concrete, cement, and other things that go into it. So think of the foundation of PR being communications, common sense, culture, and campaigns. So all good PR is built on campaigns, communications, culture, and common sense. And then on the ground floor, we have 4 rooms: the kitchen, the dining room, the living room, and a study room. Kitchen is where a lot of action at home happens, right? And in PR as well, 50% of work is content. Creating good content is a large part of what PR does. And that's where newspapers play a role. Then that's connected with stakeholders. So the dining room is where families meet over lunch, dinner, breakfast, and connect with each other. So the connection is 3 sets of connections. So first is the primary stakeholder, the employees and customers. Second is all of the stakeholders Sujit mentioned, the government, NGOs, communities we live around, potential employees, alumni, whatnot. And the third is a very special group. Earlier there was only one set they called the media or journalists. Very important, they can make or break brands. And now we have influencers, thanks to Instagram, Twitter. We have influencers as well who are in that group. They can say something about a brand and praise it. They can say something trashy and kill the brand overnight as well. And then there are two other elements, not important right now, but crisis management and counsel, advising brands, advising people who run brands on behavior and reputation. So largely, PR is about behavior. How do brands and companies behave, and how does that behavior translate outside to the world, and people look at the brand in a different light. So that's in a nutshell PR. And why do we do PR? For 5 reasons. We do PR for goodwill, for respect, for engagement, affinity, and trust. So if you're doing PR for these 5 reasons, you're doing PR. If you're doing PR for something else, it's not PR. So keep this in mind for those of you who don't know what PR is as we go along. Back to Shrabonti.
Like you said, Amith, it's a lot about storytelling, right? Creating a narrative around a brand or a company. And in the book, you say that, both of you, I want you to answer that PR has evolved faster in the past 5 years than it has in like the previous many decades. So what are some of the challenges that have come with it, and how has it evolved firstly, and what are some of the challenges that have come with it? Do you find the narrative easier to control or more difficult to control?
I think I fully agree with you. I mean, PR has evolved in the last 5-7 years much faster than in the last 5 decades probably. And that's because of the advent of social media. The biggest challenge, ma'am, is about online reputation management. Today, reputations are built online. If you want to go to a restaurant, what do you do first? You first go to a Google to see the rankings. Who's filling up those rankings? These are your publics. If you want to buy a product, you go to online, again you figure out the rankings and the ratings. On Amazon you have ratings. It's all become online now. And the biggest challenge now is there's also a huge community, which is the community of trolls, which can actually kill your brand. Politicians are facing it, brands are facing it. Individually you're vulnerable to face that. So the biggest challenge has been to listen to what's happening in the social media about you. Unless you know what's happening in the social media about you, you won't be able to take an action, a corrective action or a course correction or a response to it. So this online reputation management has become the biggest challenge today. It's absolutely necessary. The second challenge is about fake news. With the new technologies like AI and everything coming up, you never know your competition sitting in one room and trying to roger you left, right, center by putting up narratives. And narrative setting is absolutely a critical task, because narratives which are negative fly faster. That's why probably you'll see in newspapers also, you won't get the news about the great stuff your organizations do in CSR or, but if something wrong happens, immediately hits the front page. So these are challenges which are coming up. There's plenty of more challenges, but these are the top of the mind challenges which one has to deal with day in and day out.
Yeah, so digital and social media did a difference, but COVID, when COVID happened in 2020 March, 3.5, almost 4 years ago, a lot of brands which advertised in a big way realized that newspapers had stopped in people's houses. They had to reach out to consumers. So they said, I'm not using PR effectively, I'm not spending enough money on PR, I need to now change that. A lot of PR firms, and there are some PR firm leaders in the room, I see Nandita there, hi Nandita, and others, Sumati, they had a challenge for the first few months for sure. But then I think, and they'll agree, maybe we can talk to them offline, brands realize that they need to invest more in PR and reach out to a larger set of stakeholders beyond just using the newspaper route, and nothing against Shrabonti's job, but to make people realize things through social media, the power of digital, and other ways of reaching audiences through storytelling as well. So the advent of social media in the last 5-7 years and what happened in 2020 to the entire world made PR gallop leaps and bounds in no time and made us reach a point in 2023 which would have taken 3 or 4 more years to reach.
In fact, just to add to what Amith has said, another layer of, the way people look at PR or organizational communications has changed. There's an element of authenticity which is crept in, Today people will call out a brand if it's probably trying to greenwash or cause wash, trying to make pompous claims, use my shampoo and you'll get more hair, or, use this cream and you'll get fairer. Or, so all those things are getting called out. And it's all the more important that one has to be conscious with the kind of communication that goes out. It has to be authentic, it has to be full of empathy, it has to be with the consumer in the mind, and only things work. And that is all enabled by PR. It's not enabled by advertising, because advertising is all about hammering the same message. That's the point I'm trying to make. I mean,
it's deeper storytelling, right?
It's deeper, it's authentic storytelling.
Yeah, it's kind of, you can go into the history of the brand, you can build a story around it, a narrative around it. Right. So actually, interestingly, your book is about, it's called The Pursuit of Reputation, and PR is all about, creating images, creating perceptions and reputation. But to be honest, like the profession of PR, public relations itself, I think suffers from a slight reputation challenge. It is, even in pop culture, when we look at American TV shows which show lobbyists and PR people, there's a slight negative connotation about, spin doctors and all. Why do you think that is? And what have you done in your career specifically to maybe overcome that?
Thanks for this question. I think every profession has quacks. Every profession has people who are not genuinely part of the profession but come into that profession for whatever reason. They think, okay, I can make quick money here. Medicine has quacks. There are failed engineers who end up becoming part of projects and those bridges collapse and whatnot happens as well. So like that, even PR has had people over the years who have got into PR who came from non-formal settings, not formal education backgrounds, who said, okay, I can make a quick buck by advising somebody to do something and get things done. Someone felt, if I know 3 famous people in the city, I can connect them together and make things happen with them. And that's happened over the years. But I think with the advent of qualified professionals coming into PR, running PR firms in this country and in the world, I think that has taken a backseat over the years. But 25 years ago, PR meant wining and dining with people. And that was not the right way to look at PR as well. But today, PR means offering clients, offering brands, a strategic approach to communicating with audiences as well. So I think what Shrabonti says is true about 10, 15 years ago. It's died a slower death over the years, and people now know you can differentiate the men from the boys and the genuine PR people from the fake PR people as well. And PR firms which came up from those places with fake people died a sad death, whether in the UK, whether in India over the years. We won't take names, but PR firms who were led by spin doctors, as they say. So I think spin doctor is a word that is used wrongly to PR people. It's not a right word to use. Spin doctors are people who have some connections, who are able to spin a story and get things done. But PR, like Sujit said, is largely authentic stories being told in genuine ways. And journalists today, like in the previous years, are smart. If you go to a journalist with a story, he or she knows if the brand is really telling you something that is true or making up something as well. So you can't lie today to anybody. 25, 30 years back, people who got into some professions try to lie their way through selling brands. You can't do that today. People call it out and brands face a natural death if that happens.
I think just to add to what Amith has said, also probably the PR professionals have failed in their duties to do PR for PR, I think that's and that's why the book, I guess, yeah. So PR for PR is basically, getting the world to know what PR contributes. I can give you 3 examples. Let me tell you, the market capitalization of any organization, listed company, 30% is due to the reputation it carries. Do you agree with that? Would you invest in a company which has a bad reputation? Who builds reputation? It's the PR and the public relations professionals. Number 1. Yeah, it's hardly known to people. Second, when you're looking at an organization to join, what would you look at it from? Which lens would you look at it from? Is it an organization which has got great policies? Does it have a great employee culture? Which is the team which is responsible for employer branding or creating a reputation for a great place to work? It's again PR professionals. It's all about authentic communication. Again, nobody knows about it. There has been statistics which says that you can earn a premium of almost 3 to 7% if the reputation of your company is better or is good. Vis-a-vis a company whose reputation is bad. Again, who's aiding that? It's the PR profession. So gone are the days where we were seen as spin doctors, because it's also an angle from the angle that what is more sexier, say Bollywood or the entertainment industry, which most of the people follow, the number of crises which happen there, and there you have those PR guys who manage those crises or spin some stories, and that reputation is stuck along. From a corporate angle, there's so many instances where a public relations department in an organization contributes towards building the reputation. So things are changing, I guess, for the PR professionals. I think they need to do PR for themselves rather.
So I'll just have another question, one more question. Like, as a journalist, my job involves interacting a lot with PR people, right? But what I've seen is that unfortunately, some of the quality of that messaging, it's all about quantity, it's not about quality. It's about sending a press release and then following up and doing certain things in a very automatic order without putting too much thought into it. I'm not saying every PR person does that, but generally the industry still operates like that. What are you both doing? You are leaders of the industry. What are you both doing to change that? And do you think it needs to be changed? And this is our last question, unfortunately.
Okay. Cool. So Shrabonti's question was, what are we doing to change the new trend or the trend that's been going on for a while where people are bombarding journalists with a lot of narratives, stories, press releases, what are we doing? So one thing I did 10 years ago was I used to work in PR for about 10 years prior to that. I've been 20 years in PR now. My last job was with a PR firm in the US, with Edelman in Chicago. I learned a bunch of things there which I felt I could come and implement in India as well. So I did two things. I created a conference for PR people to start with, and I said, okay, we come together every year, 500 of us, 600 of us together in an event called Praxis, and people come together to learn from others how to do things better. One. Second thing we did about 7 years ago was that we launched an exclusive school for PR in Mumbai called SCORE. For young students in the room at scoreindia.org, check it out. And that school provides a 10-month program to train people to do PR in what we believe is the right way of doing it. Not just being crazy outreachers, but being smart, strategic advocates for brands and organizations as well. So these are two things we have done in small ways in the last few years, and we're seeing a change happen gradually with that effort. Sujit, you want to add?
From a corporate angle, I think there's been a realization, and majorly so after the COVID impact, that authenticity is absolutely necessary. The thing about spray and pray of press release is dead. You know, it happens. I mean, as Amith said, there are quacks in the industry who probably do it, and I would blame equally the corporates as well as the PR consultants or the agencies. The corporates have a pressure, the PR agency has a pressure, and the journalists have a significant amount of pressure because they are at the receiving end. You know, I'm sure Shrabonti ma'am would be receiving hundreds of press releases, and her job would be, rather than writing, to select which one to print. So, I mean, you know, there has to be some system in place, but I don't see a solution for that. It's about getting mature enough to put into print or to the journalists things which are really appropriate, rather than just spraying off press releases. So I think it's on both sides in terms of, you know.
We also need to demand better.
Absolutely. Only then the industry will grow and you'll get quality stories
Like
out.
Bangalore has at least 10 startups getting created every week, 40 a month maybe. That's maybe a back of the envelope calculation. Every brand wants to reach out to journalists. So they're hiring anybody they can at a small price point to do this for them. So there are a lot of journalists who have lost jobs in COVID times. What they do is they say, okay, I can get 3 clients who pay me a small retainer that helps me run my home, and I'll send these releases to the world at large. And that's happening. So there should be something, and we have people in the room, I said, who are part of the PR CAI as well in this room. I think PRC has been working for the last few years to change this and make it better. I think there will be a time when things will improve for sure. I'm not losing hope, but I think for now, journalists have a challenge they have to really deal with, and time will tell when this works out better.
What it demands is empathy on both sides. I think it's not only from the journalist angle, even the PR agency folks as well as the corporate communications folk also face that, because they also get late night calls from journalists at 12 in the morning saying tomorrow you have to file a story. So it's empathy required from both sides. It's a two-way kind of a thing. But I agree. I mean, the journalists are more at the receiving end because the number of releases, the number of corporates which have gone up, the dependency on PR has gone up, dependency on advertising is going down. So obviously these are things which are, you know, it's a transformation phase. So maybe
Maybe one good way would be to have synergies between journalists
absolutely.
and PRs.
I think co-creation of stories is something which might really work.
And to sort of put processes in place which work for both sides.